Hello everyone, I'm Helen Hosein and I'm a customer engineer on Chrome Browser Enterprise. When I'm working with our enterprise customers to help them get set up with Chrome in their organization, one topic that often comes up is how to get the most out of Chrome's update controls to get the best balance of stability and control. So today, we're going to be talking about what Google Update does and how it works, three basic strategies you can use to manage updates in your organization, some of the other tools that Chrome provides for fine-tuning your update strategy, a bit on the Chrome Variations framework, which is a separate mechanism from Google Update, and finally, I'll share some links and resources to help you get started. Starting with Google Update. Google Update is the tool that we use to update Chrome and other Google products on Windows. It's a separate binary from Chrome itself, and it has its own set of policies and its own ADMX templates for them. But it comes packaged in the Chrome MSI, so you don't have to worry about installing it separately for your users. The Mac equivalent to Google Update is called Keystone, and it works in a similar way. When you download Chrome for its initial installation, it's going to be about 56 megabytes. When Chrome updates to the next version, for example, from Chrome 80 to Chrome 81, that payload is about 10 to 15 megabytes. A patch for a minor update is usually only about half a megabyte to 3 megabytes. If you want to update Chrome to a new version that's not the next consecutive version, for example, from Chrome 80 to Chrome 82, you will have to do a new complete installation. A quick note on our release channels. Each of Chrome's channels gives you a window into a different stage in its release cycle to help your organization prepare for new releases. Most of your users should be on the stable channel. Stable is fully vetted and supported by Google. Minor releases to stable come out every 2 to 3 weeks with important fixes, and major releases are every 6 weeks. We recommend around 5% of your users be on the beta channel. Beta has also been tested by Google and is fully supported, so there's a minimal risk of issues. This is our release candidate, so it's an effective way to preview what's going to be coming up in the next stable release. Not much is going to change besides bug fixes. If you're also signed up to our release notes, then you can use them to know what to look for and what to test out in your organization. Beta is updated weekly with minor changes, and major updates happen every 6 weeks. IT staff may want to use the dev channel for an even earlier preview of new features. These features are not guaranteed to make it to beta or stable, but this can be a good opportunity for testing what's coming down the pipe. Dev is updated once or twice weekly and is only minimally tested, so it may contain bugs. Developers who want to test the bleeding edge of Chrome can use the Canary channel. Please beware, Canary is not tested by Google and it may be unstable. It's not even guaranteed to run. Canary is for testing purposes only. We release it daily or as soon as it's built. Now let's dive into the update management strategies. Chrome provides several options to give you control and visibility of your environment. These fall broadly into three update management strategies. Number one, auto update. Number two, version pinning. Number three, full manual updates. If you're looking to balance security with control, you'll find that the simplest and most secure update management strategy is to enable auto update and allow Google Update to update Chrome for you every time a new version is released. In some exceptional cases, though, you may need tighter control over which version of Chrome users in a specific organizational unit are using. The other two strategies can give you additional level of control over those users that need it. Strategy number one, auto update, is our recommended best practice. It's what most of our customers do and what Google does internally. With this strategy, All your users receive critical security fixes and new features as they become available. There's no need to manually vet each release and security patch or to centrally manage them. The browser will update itself. Because Chrome is always up to date, using auto-update reduces the risk of crashes and security vulnerabilities. And your users will always be on a supported version of Chrome. You can test each new version of Chrome for up to 6 weeks before each stable release using our beta channel. Remember to subscribe to our release notes so you know what's coming. The only downside to this approach is if your organization is bound to more controlled processes due to business or legacy requirements that take longer than 6 weeks to complete. We'll talk about how you can accommodate those sorts of processes with the next strategy. And here's how Google Update updates Chrome when auto-update is enabled. First, Google Update runs via a scheduled task. Then it reads Chrome's version from the Windows registry or the map plist in the case of Keystone. It then takes that version information and sends it to the update server. If a newer version of Chrome is available, the update server sends over the URL for the correct binary to update Chrome from its current version to the latest available. Then, Google Update downloads and runs the updater. If Chrome is running when it's updated, the user is notified that an update is available and the browser needs a restart. You can control this behavior via policy, which we'll discuss later. Here's how you enable auto-update in the Google Admin Console. Feel free to screenshot this slide as a reference. To make sure your users receive updates as soon as they're available, configure this setting to always allow updates. This gives your users 2 routes for automatic updates. One, when updates are found via the periodic update check. And 2, when the user does a manual update check by visiting chrome://settings/help. Here's the equivalent setting for Windows GPO. Again, feel free to take a screenshot. And here it is for Mac. Screenshot away if you need it. Strategy number 2 centers on version pinning. Most customers who use this strategy are only doing so within specific organizational units. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing approach. Version pinning accommodates change management vetting cycles that take longer than 6 weeks, while still keeping the manual effort associated with updating Chrome to a minimum. This approach can be especially useful for exception users who need a specific version of Chrome. The risk, of course, is if you pin to an older version of Chrome, that version may lack critical fixes and may not be supported. Here's how it's done. Once again, feel free to screenshot this slide as a reference. Set the target version prefix to the major milestone you've reviewed and tested, and make sure you subscribe to the release notes. If you include just the milestone number and the point after it, Chrome will apply all incremental updates and security patches automatically, but it won't update to the next version. When a new release is available, you can review the release notes and do any testing you need to. Once you're happy with the new release, go ahead and update target version prefix to the new milestone. On to our third and final strategy for managing updates. This is the more traditional method of manually pushing a new version after internal vetting. Like version pinning, this strategy accommodates longer change management vetting cycles, but it can also be used in extremely locked down environments where there's no internet access and Chrome is used for internal web apps only. There are a number of risks to this strategy, though. First of all, there is a significant manual effort, and not only is that time consuming, but you should also bear in mind that all manual processes are prone to error. Security and bug fixes won't be received by these browsers automatically, so there's a risk they'll miss a critical fix. If these users are still on an older version of Chrome, the version they're using may not be supported. And if you run into a problem requiring a rollback, you'll have to have access to an older MSI in order to perform that rollback manually. In addition to the main options we've already discussed to help set up those three update management strategies, here are a few more levers that you can pull to fine tune Chrome updates. Soon, we'll be adding a new report to the Google Admin Console that lets you see Chrome OS and Chrome browser versions in one place and filter by the last active time. Here's a short preview of what that's going to look like. I mentioned earlier that you can control the way users are notified when an update is available and the browser needs a restart. If you see a browser in your versions report that should have been updated but hasn't been, it may still be waiting for a restart and the user may need a nudge. You can set relaunch notification to recommended to give users a reminder, or set it to required to force an automatic restart. Use relaunch notification period to specify the time period for notifications. The default is 1 week and the minimum is 1 hour. Here's a short demo of how to set a forced relaunch. If some of your users are working in a low bandwidth environment, you may want to suppress updates during their working hours or at least during peak hours to minimize disruption. Here, you can specify the time of day when Chrome should start suppressing update checks and for how long. You may also find it useful to control when Chrome checks for updates, so updates can be more spread out over a period of time. This setting specifies the amount of time between update checks. Note that in the admin console, it's in hours, but in GPO, it's in minutes. You can also save bandwidth by caching updates. This setting tells us to send cache-friendly download URLs when Chrome is ready for an update. This should just work with your existing web caching proxy server. If you run into issues though, here are some settings you can configure on your proxy server. Feel free to screenshot this if it's useful for you. One more useful tool I'd like to cover in this section is rollback. In a few rare cases where you run into a bug or incompatibility, you may decide to roll back to a previous version of Chrome while you wait for a fix. To do this, set target version prefix to the version you'd like to roll back to. This should be the most recent version that works as expected in your environment. And then enable rollback to target version for the rollback to take effect. Remember, updates through Google Update must be allowed for an automatic rollback to work, and you can only roll back to one of the last 3 versions of Chrome. For browsers that are updated manually, like in strategy number 3, or if you need to roll back to an older version, you will need to perform the rollback manually. Here's a demo of rollback in action. Here's a summary of the policies we've just talked about. This is a great slide to screenshot as a takeaway. I'd like to touch a bit on the Chrome Variations framework, which is another way that we update Chrome and is separate from Google Update. The Chrome Variations framework lets us give a small group of users previews of new features and gather feedback, slowly roll out changes to progressively larger groups of users to minimize the risk of incompatibilities, provide security and other critical fixes to you faster, and roll back features if needed without you having to wait for a new version of Chrome. All the user has to do is restart. Here's an illustration of what that looks like. Google Update replaces one version of Chrome, for example, Chrome 80, with a new version, in this example, Chrome 81. If you think of each of these shapes as a feature, you can see that new features are added with the new version. Chrome Variations lets us enable and disable specific features within the same version of Chrome. Look at the triangle shape on the right. With Chrome Variations, we can quickly turn that individual feature on, off, and on again as needed. We've recently released a new policy to help you control this behavior. There are 3 options, which I'll run through in detail. Variations enabled, critical fixes only, and variations disabled. The first option, variations enabled, is the default behavior, and it's what we would recommend for the vast majority of use cases. Users will receive critical security and bug fixes faster, while features get rolled out to users more gradually, minimizing the risk and impact of incompatibilities. If a problem is discovered, we can roll back much faster by just turning the relevant feature off. Of course, you should also be aware that some users may have access to a feature that other users haven't received yet, even though they're on the same version of Chrome. Because of this, this approach may not be suitable for enterprises doing heavy validation testing, the kind of testing you might be doing if you're using the version pinning update strategy or the full manual update strategy we discussed earlier. Which brings us to the second option, critical fixes only. This is the option we recommend if you're doing version pinning or full manual updates. This option is also useful for hands-on testing with a specific version of Chrome. And users will continue to receive critical security fixes faster. The downside, compared to enabling all variations, is that new features will appear all at once with each new version, meaning that the impact of any incompatibilities will be broader. And if you run into an issue that's not considered critical, you may have to wait for a new version of Chrome to receive a fix. The third option for Chrome variations is to disable them altogether. This option is available for subsets of your organization where full control is needed. Situations where you need to prioritize stability over security. Generally speaking, this option is not recommended because, as with the previous option, new features will appear all at once, which broadens the impact of incompatibilities. And any issues you discover, not just minor issues, may have to wait for a new version of Chrome for a fix. To summarize, these are some of the many ways that Chrome gives you control and visibility of your environment. Use these controls to get the best balance of security and stability for your users. And of course, don't forget our checklist of recommendations for most scenarios. Use auto update, keep variations switched on, test in beta, and subscribe to our release notes. This is your final screenshot slide. Here are some resources to help you get more information and take action. That's all the time we have for update controls. Thank you for joining.